Africa needs young leaders such as this.
We're not scared of anyone who has invited us to the war. We are here today to accept the war and to accept that we are enemy number one of the white monopoly capital. And we will not be defeated.
It's high time for France to lift its knee off our neck and put an end to this unjust oppression. Centuries of misery, human trafficking, colonization, and neocolonization have caused immeasurable suffering. It's time to put an end to this cycle of oppression. It's high time for France to leave us alone. It's time for France to take a cue from its European neighbors and learn a valuable lesson in independence.
The era of the old Africa is over. Today, the African people are more awake than ever and more than ever determined to take their destiny into their own hands. The African people are tired, exhausted by the categorizations with which everyone wants to box us in. Placing us under the influence of this or that power is an insult. It is contempt and racism towards a continent of more than 1,300,000,000 people. The time has come. This is the end of an unbalanced and unjust era where we had no say in the matter. It is time to take our rights into account and to let us take our proper place, but also, and above all, it is time to stop lecturing us and to stop treating us with condescension like children. Rest assured that we're old enough to know what is good for us. We are mature enough to define our priorities, to design our own models which are in line with our identity.
I've lost confidence in politicians.
Sure.
I've not lost confidence in the people who are working the state, who are deeply capable and technical to turn it around. The problem is not the state, it's not the technocrats, it's the politicians. If you removed the politicians and they're meddling, you'd find incredibly capable people who know what they're doing.
Where was this force when thousands and thousands of Nigerians were killed by terrorists? Where was this force when thousands of Malians of Burkina Faso died under the bullets of terrorists?
Senegal under my magisterium will be a country of hope. A country to be weighed down with an independent judiciary and a strengthened democracy, with an independent justice and a strengthened democracy. Such is my promise on the faith of the oath that I have just taken before God and before the nation in your presence.
It is only with this kind of leaders Africa will be able to take their true freedom, which our forefathers have fought for so many years. Africans deserve much more better after all these years that the former colonials have destroyed the African economy by continuing looting African minerals, by continuing imposing their puppet president who have to come and sit in power without respecting democracy of their people who they're supposed to be at their service, but they fail doing so. Do you know why? Because most of all these leaders, they were at the service of the Western. It was the Western who have to come and put them in power, who have to come and impose their leadership to the people of Africa continent. Because the West, they have pretended to leave Africa. They have pretended to free up Africa continent, but they only leave Africa physically and not economically. And that is the reason why you see there is a lot of poverty all over Africa continent. But how will Africa have to have their own true freedom if they don't have such kind of leaders who have the courage to face the West? It is only with this kind of youth, it is only with this kind of generation, Africa continent will be able to stand again on their feet and try to do what is right, try to do things that they're supposed to be doing for many years ago. With all these leaders that I just show you, you will understand that the Western, And this time I'm focusing more particularly on France, that they don't have much time to remain again in Africa, because the Republic of France, they have in fact have now more enemies through the African youth, through this African generation that is raising up to come and defend the African continent. France, his days are numbers in Africa, because each and every door that France was entering more freely, they are no longer having that easy access, because in all these African countries, there are now new leaders, they are now having new young generations who are taking things in control, who are taking their destiny into their hands, and that make France become in a very high positions. This time in this video, I want us to talk more about this new elected president of Senegal. Of course, I'm talking about Diomaye Faye, from prison to the president of Senegal. What a wonderful miraculous is that? How possible that such a things can happen in Africa of today? Well, we know that the Africa back in days, which was more controlled by the Western country, it was if the Western, they find you as an obstacle or something that will distract them, or if you try to stand in the way of the Western, you find out that they'll fight you by using their puppet president to lock you in cell for many years without you having even a chance to participate to the elections, without giving you a chance to become the candidate to the presidential elections or any post that you want to lead your people and try to show them your visions on how to do things around. But sadly, in the case of this new president of Senegal, the man who was released only within 10 days before the general elections in Senegal, such a thing never happened. Right now, Senegal is having one of the youngest presidents in Senegal, and also one of the youngest presidents in the Africa continent. Of course, we have such young president as Ibrahim Traoré from Burkina Faso, but him is a military, so we can't really put him in the post of a president because he was not elected. He was there as a military coup took place in that country. But when it comes to elected president, this man you see here is the youngest president in Africa as we are talking right now. Guys, we want to understand why this man was arrested. We want to understand also why they have to release him in the last minute. And we also want to understand why France is so afraid of this young man. Yes, you heard me correct. France, with their president Emmanuel Macron, they are so scared of this man. What did he say to France and Emmanuel Macron so that they'll be so scared of him and try to stop him? Because, for your own information, this man has his own friends. And his friend, his best friend for many years ago, they've been fighting together as the opposition political party in Senegal for some times now. And his friend is the one who's supposed to be being elected as the president of Senegal. But unfortunately, the man was disqualified in the last minute, all because they have to use again Macky Sall with his government, with his justice system being imposed by the Western power in order for them to stop them so that no one of them should not participate in these elections. Have a listen to this report.
His supporters call him Mr. Clean. That's because President-elect Bassirou Diomaye Faye is promising a new Senegal.
The Senegalese people have chosen to break with the past. I pledge to govern with humility and transparency and to fight corruption at all levels. I pledge to devote myself fully to rebuilding our institutions and strengthening the foundations of our way of life together.
Faye is not a well-known political figure and only entered the leadership race as a substitute for his mentor Ousmane Sonko, a long-standing opposition force in the country who was disqualified from the election. Released from jail himself less than 2 weeks before the vote, 44-year-old Faye is now set to become Senegal's youngest president, riding on the back of Sonko's young supporters. You will see a different face of the Senegalese people and of Senegal, because it's a total revolution. Everything is going to change, behaviorally, socially, and financially. Everything is going to change. Faye appealed to jobless voters struggling under the weight of high unemployment. He also rallied support under a populist Pan-African platform. That included promises of economic independence and a new currency not pegged to the euro. But Senegal will also start producing oil and gas this year, which could mean new international partnerships. The run-up to this election was filled with fears of democratic backsliding. Faye now faces the challenge of inspiring confidence on all levels. Experts say Senegal will need sweeping reforms if it's to move forward. Now it's time to see if Faye, a young and unexpected leader, can really lead Senegal into a new chapter.
So looking at how things are seated on the table, you'll understand very well that these two men have history. And that is the reason why from the moment when Mr. Faye became the president of Senegal, he have to release his best friend from the prison as well and nominate him as a prime minister of Senegal. Why? Because the man is also more grateful to his best friend. And remember, they arrested him all because he went live on one of the social media trying to denounce the justice system, which the court have to give a certain decisions on some things which is more unfair, that everyone could see that this is a political case. We all know how things are being happened, how things are being done in Africa continent. It is all about eliminating one another, if it's not physically, but by sending you maybe through medicals, health conditions, or maybe sending you in jail, or maybe doing something so that you won't be able to stand against them. But I want us to understand something here as I questioned this question earlier on. Is it that this man is the one who made Macky Sall, the former president of Senegal, to be scared of him? Or was it France with their president Emmanuel Macron who are afraid of this young man? Because he's only 44 years old. But yet, it seemed to be shaking the things around. And seeing them sending all of them in prison, him and his best friend, there is a reason. Hence I ask you guys, was it Macky Sall who was afraid of them, or was it France with their alliance? They are the one who are actually afraid of these two young men. Obviously, it was not all about Macky Sall. I will prove to you, I will tell you actually, if it was Macky Sall, then I don't think this man was going to be the president in Senegal. Number two, Macky Sall was just a man whom they used, and he did his mission with a guilty conscience, with a Pan-African conscience, which had to remind him that you are busy selling your country out. Because remember, these elections, it was already being reported by Macky Sall because he was doing his last term. And he had to report it. He tried to not respect the calendar which was planned already for the election to take place in that country. And he was doing all this because he was under pressure. Because he had to organize, not only him organizing, but the Western powers such as France, they had to organize another puppet president who will come and replace him. This is what France, British, US, and all these Western NATO countries, they usually do time to time in Africa, whereby they always have to choose one of the African leaders who will be at their service as a puppet. They will campaign for that person, regardless of how many crimes that person have committed, regardless of how many corruption case this person can be accused of, all the kind of allegations that this person can have. If the Western power, the Western countries choose you to be at their service, they will make sure that they go with you until the end, until when you become the president. That's how they've been doing it. Do you know why? Because these people, they want to control Africa from far through Africans who have to be leading the governments, who have to be signing, giving them contracts such as a contract for the road, mining, actually all the tenders. These people have to be having easy access to it. The tenders that's supposed to be going to Africans. For an example, maybe you from Kenya having a tender in Senegal, you from Morocco having a tender maybe in South Africa. Instead of us doing that things among Africans so that we can grow up our economy as Africans. Unfortunately, that was not the case with these African leaders, because most of them, they were used by the Western power so that whatsoever they will tell them to do is what these people have to do. So when the election was already being reported in Senegal, instead of it taking place on due time as it was planned by the constitution calendar, well, it was all because the Western countries, France particularly, they were busy already putting pressure on Macky Sall, saying that he should take or choose his replacement who will come from the France. On the other side, we were having these two young men who were not at the service of the Western countries. Yes, Mr. Faye refused and said no to the oppressors. He said no to the former colonial of Senegal. He said no to Emmanuel Macron to work even with him. He refused, and before even he became the president, this man, he have a history. Yes, he fought the West by all means. He gave them serious message, telling them the truth that you guys, you need to leave not only Senegal, but you have to leave as well Africa continent, because we don't see the use of you guys being in Africa. The only things you guys are good at in Africa, it is to loot Africa mineral, is to loot Africa resource so that you guys can go ahead and benefit your economy. Because you can't imagine a country such as France to become that powerful with their economy without Africa. You can't imagine a country such as the UK without Africa gold. So you can tell that all these countries, they are surviving all thanks to African minerals. And now these African youth leaders, they are now coming up with a new mind. They are coming up with an idea of changing things around. They want to do things in a different way than the way things used to be before. France is out of Africa. It is just they are trying to resist a little bit. You know, a hard fighter, a champion, a person who always wins every time, the moment when they're being defeated, they don't lash so quick. They don't just let go so quick. They'll try to resist. And that's what France is doing right now. Because if you take countries such as Burkina Faso with Ibrahim Traoré, you take a country such as Mali, where there is also a military government over there. You take a country such as Niger, where there is also a military government over there. You take a country such as Guinea, where there is also military government there. Now we are talking about Gabon. You take countries such as, which country is this? There are a couple of countries in Africa which they have said no to France, which decided to say no to the leadership of France. They say no to their former colonials, and they say that it's about time for you guys to let us be, for you guys to leave us control our own minerals, for us to sell it to the person of our choice and at the price of our choice. Those countries, that the countries that we saw how France tried to resist against them. France fought against all these countries by imposing sanctions against them, by threatening to not giving them funds or to not produce money, to not do 1, 2, 3 things. As we all know, these people, one of the techniques or tips that they usually apply time to time is to make sure that they have something to bully you, something that they can use against you, so that whenever you want to turn your back against them, they'll use it against you. And this time, with all these African leaders, you will tell already that France, they have lost their leadership in some part of African countries, especially in French-speaking countries. Now, just because they're so stubborn, they don't want to give up. That is the reason why you see them trying their best to not let go. But it's just a matter of time. Because now that France have made another enemy in Senegal, whereby from the beginning, from day one, that this man son in, he had to tell them straight away that I don't want you in my country.
The Senegalese people have chosen to break with the past. I pledge to govern with humility and transparency and to fight corruption at all levels. I pledge to devote myself fully to rebuilding our institutions and strengthening the foundations of our way of life together. Senegal will always hold its ground and remain a friendly country and a reliable ally to any partner who engages with us in virtuous, respectful and mutually productive cooperation.
Yes, Mr. Faye told them that you guys stay out of Senegal affairs. If you want to work with Senegal, if you want to deal with Senegal, then you have to come on the main door where everyone will be seeing you and not by the window. What kind of message is that? That is the things that is making France to become even more scared of this young man. Because the man, he had threatened and give them a warning actually. He gave France a warning before he became a president, and when is he now a president? This is the kind of the man that we need to protect as Africans. If you are a true Pan-Africa, wherever you are, we need to protect this kind of men because we know how these people they are. We know how they behave. We know how they act. They like to eliminate this kind of Pan-Africans. They like to eliminate this kind of leaders so that they'll continue with their leadership, whereby they have to come in Africa and impose us their own presidents. Okay? So these are the kind of men that we need to protect with everything. Because this kind of language, seeing a man having this kind of courage to look France into their eyes and tell them that no, enough, it is enough. I don't think we need you anymore in our country. We don't want you in Africa continent. Get out. These kind of words are the words that can make France go crazy. Because, remember, I have told you before, it all started in Mali. When it started in Mali, no one could believe or no one could have imagined that France would be kicked out of Mali. Today, Malians, they are now controlling their own gold. They are now controlling their own natural resource without France to come and tell them on how to do it or who they have to sell it to. From Mali, it went to Burkina Faso. From Burkina Faso, it went to Chad. Chad, there's still some, a lot going on, pending on there. We'll talk about it in our next videos, but there's a lot of things that is happening in Chad right now, whereby France is trying to put even more conflict so that the militaries, they will start having conflict among themselves. It will be all about military coup. This one in power today, tomorrow that one, as they are doing right now in Sudan, because we all know they want African to be divided. because whenever Africa are divided, them they are busy running and they are busy having easy access to African mineral resource. So now from Chad, we went to Niger. Who could have imagined that Niger would actually kick France out of their country? Because we also how France even threatened the government, the military government of Niger. They threatened them, telling them that, no, you guys, you don't need to be here. You guys, you have to stop this, otherwise we have to punish you, otherwise we will have sanctions. France even went far by telling them that we are going to invade your country if you don't bring back our puppet president. What kind of courage? Imagine the Republic of France, or let's say one of the African country, can go to France and say that you guys, you must put back this president. So they are actually asking much from Africans, things that them they want to tolerate on their side. Those are the kind of the things that they are asking Africans to do, because they know very well that on their side it won't work. But just because they had the easy access to always put their own puppet president in Africa, they think that things will remain the same forever. Thanks God, things are no longer the same, because we are now having people such as Ibrahim Traoré. We are having people such as Julius Malema. Because this is one of the questions I always ask myself most of the time as Pan-African. That when you look someone like a Julius Malema, the man who had the courage to tell the world on how he thinks about the former colonials, and he gave his own reasons. Personally, looking at the person of Julius Malema, is not someone whom you can come and say that no, he have conflict or he does not like white people or what, as the world that are trying to decorate him. Nope. Actually, if you look very well, there are many white people who are more close and friend to him. Though we can't still trust them, because they can be used to eliminate our brother. But the man, he gave one of his reasons by saying that the problem that he does fight with the former colonials is for the fact that they are pretending to leave Africa, but yet their presence still in Africa. They're the one who run Africa minings, they're the one who get big tenders, they're the one who does that, they're everywhere. And they still have a word to say in Africa politics. That is one of the things that Julius Malema does not allow and does not want. And therefore, since these people still don't want to listen to what the man is asking of them, while he make it very clear, he said to them before, even now, because at any time this man can become also a president of South Africa. You'll never know, anything is possible. But he had said already that there is no way you'll work with them as long as they still have those kind of behaviors. And here he referred to people such as, countries such as the US, France, British, Belgium. Instead, he preferred to work with countries such as China and Russia because of their honesty. Because it's not saying that these people are good, but just because at least they have that respect for Africans. They have that respect for African leaders as well. They have that respect for African minerals. You see China, how he keep on beating the US all over Africa continent. Do you know why? Because they go around, they build, they take from Africans, but they do some things. They build roads, hospitals, housings, lot of things all over Africa continent. Which is not the case with people who've been looting Africa for so many years, but yet they have not done nothing for Africans. So now you understand the reasons why they have to fight Diomaye Faye. They are fighting him because the man, he had already shown his position that I'm not going to let myself to become your puppet president. Instead, I'm going to join other Africans. I'm going to join other Pan-African leaders, and we'll work together in order for us to liberate Africa continent. Well, Unfortunately, I could not play you the whole speech so that you can hear what this man was saying, because the whole entire speech, it was in English, in French. So most of you guys, you don't speak French, so it was kind of like a big job to translate the whole thing. But if you want to watch the whole full speech, you can obviously just have a look on the social medias. You'll come across it. Then you'll understand what this man have said to France and the West countries. So France, you have make another enemy. Tomorrow, there will be another enemy. In terms of enemies that who are Pan-Africans and want the best for African continent. Guys, thank you so much for watching this video. I'm running out of time now. So for now, continue to be yourself, be good, be kind. Give us your thumbs up, we'll really do appreciate it. I'll see you again very soon in our next video. Ciao, ciao.
Senegal will always hold its ground and remain a friendly country and a reliable ally to any partner who engages with us in virtuous, respectful and mutually productive cooperation.
Respectueuse et mutuellement productive.